of Mississippi. It's called Bass Houston. It's actually still there. And, you know, he had some customers approach him, you should start your own shop. So he did, started off in Buellton, and we were a stamping house. That stamping house called TriCost, Tri-County Spring and Stamping. We slowly migrated closer to LA where bigger business was, shipping was cheaper. Place before this, we were in Carpinteria on Cindy Lane. Now we're here, we've been in this building for almost 30 years here in Ventura. I'm a third generation. It skipped a generation, went from my grandfather to me. I was a little more aggressive and was active in sales and maybe a little more mechanical. And I loved what I did, you know. I love what I do. I get to really play with the old mechanical punch presses and lathes and all these older, you know, dog clutches and pins and just really mechanical pieces of art that are still out there making millions of parts. But then we also get to dabble with, you know, the water jets, the lasers, and other really cutting, bleeding edge equipment. 3D printers now we're really big into. So we have the county's largest printers, specializing in exotic FDM and 3D scanning. Got a new 3D scanner coming in on Wednesday. I'm really excited. Now we're kind of going one step further and doing the whole AI ML thing. So artificial intelligence, machine learning is crucial in a world that requires data. And these right now, these vision systems and AI are going to be changing the game in manufacturing. It's hard to beat overseas, but you know, we're not going to beat it by throwing more people or reducing their pay rate, but we're going to have to be leaner, quicker, you know, better. And so these AI systems are going to be really key. And, you know, I'm really happy to be part of this movement and also to, you know, tell you guys a little bit about myself and my years of experience. You know, whatever you guys need to ask, I'm sure I'll explain it and then some. So there we go.
Great. Well, thank you, Shane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the different definitions. So I'm going to read you the definition of one of the aspects of operations management, and then just have you tell me what comes to mind when I give you that definition. So the first one is design of goods and services. So this defines much of what's required of operations in each of the operations management decisions. For instance, product design usually determines the lower limits of cost and the upper limits of quality, as well as major implications for sustainability and the human resources required. So I don't know if you can talk about that a little bit.
Ooh, this is where it all begins. So you know, I'm a big fan of CAD, you know, SolidWorks, getting your design perfected in its processes in CAD, because you're going to be able to right off the bat, you're going to cut off revisions. We can get parts out of here now. No one really ever gets it Rev 1 done. Rev 2, most certainly, that's very common here. We have to do Rev 1 all the time because we are a custom shop. So if it's not right, we don't get paid. Our scrap rate is 0.02 for the year. That's combining. I mean, we don't scrap a lot here. We've got some professionals who look at a print and can make the part. So when you're designing your part, you've got to make it so it works in a machine. You just can't make something that's, you know, theoretically possible, because your supply chain down the line, it's going to be a disaster. You're going to be putting out fires left and right. You need to be proactive in your design. You need to use, you know, SolidWorks or SpaceClaim or Autodesk and really get something that will work in a machine that is here on Earth, or in reality, so a punch press or a water jet or a laser, and try to use each one of those machines' capabilities to the maximum you can, because anytime you can eliminate a setup, you're going to, you know, you're decreasing your time and you're going to be decreasing your cost. So design to manufacture is probably one of the biggest terms that is the most critical. Imagine all the parts that have been scrapped out in the world's existence by humans, and it is a bunch of waste. And so not only for waste, but cost and speed, you've got to know what machine you're going to be designing your product for. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and what I like that you mentioned is the fact that, when you're designing a product, you really have to think about how it's going to be mass produced because, it's one thing,
Yep,
developing the
great
prototype
point.
and all the work, but this thing has to be repeatable. It's got to be cost effective. So
Yep,
those upper and lower limits of cost. But then in addition to that, thinking about just mechanically, how is this thing going to be made?
you're
Minimum
darn right.
setup
It could go
time.
on a laser, for prototypes. So maybe you're making several hundred. You don't want to build a tool for punch presses for several hundred because that tool is going to cost you, 5, 10, 50, $100,000 when you can just have them, 20 laser cut, have them bent, send them out for plating, put your PEM nuts in, make sure everything works, proof of concept, and it looks good. Hopefully you had those punch press or whatever tooling numbers being quoted in the background because any little changes can't say it won't affect the price, but any kind of little, massages of it shouldn't change it too much. Sometimes the quoters they don't even want to change it, and we'll just give you the same price. So yeah, you nailed it on that one too. It's each different, quantity, not part to part, but 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 might have a different system of doing it, and that goes kind of across the board, whether in injection molding or stamping, blanking, all that, machining.
Yeah, well, and that's such a big consideration because I see a lot of entrepreneurs that will come up with a really, really cool prototype, right? And they've proved their concept. And in fact, I've got a entrepreneur right now who has a really cool engineered device for aerospace, right?
Mm.
And this is something that does some really radical things in terms of capability of flight, but at the same time, right, you can do it on a small level, but can you mass produce it? Will it hold up to wear and tear? So there's all these things that have to be considered. So
Sometimes the one might cost as much as the thousand, because it's just how it is, how it breaks down, and materials, or you wonder, don't have a lot of you don't want to have your part be 60% materials because it just drives your costs out there, and you won't be in business long trying to sell something like that.
well, that's interesting. Well, and especially in your role, because sometimes as you said, and you're like a lot of manufacturers we tend to see is you're doing, not mass production, you're doing very customized stuff, and often the things that you're making for customers will be mass produced later.
It will, and probably most likely not by us. We do have components still. We have one job that we just set up. We run it every year, twice a year actually. It's about 20,000 parts, and we've been running that job for 49 years. And we really, whenever that comes up, it's just like another personal record. And it happens twice a year. So I really appreciate it when it comes through, and it's a good money job too, believe it or not. A stamping job, 3-stage die, and we make good money on it. And it's I'm proud of it.
Wow, that's great. So the next one, and it kind of leads to this, is managing quality. And the definition we have out of the book is determines the customer's quality expectations and establishes policies and procedures to identify and achieve that quality. So I don't know what you can tell us about what you do and how quality plays into what you do.
Well, if we're designing something from scratch for someone, we are also looking through the whole pipeline. We can make something, but can we check it? Because if you can't check it, how are you going to get it signed off? And there is a way to check everything because you have your lasers, you have your photogrammetry, you have CMM, and so or you have calipers. We are a caliper place, although I do have one laser scanner. It's a gray area still in ISO, but I have another laser scanner that'll be here on Wednesday, and it is certified for GD&T, and it's going to save us so much time. And so in quality, if you don't have I know guys who don't have really any qualities. They check 1 or 2 dimensions on a part and it's good. Murphy's going to get them. When is it? Because, you know, someone's going to mess up somewhere down the line and it's not going to be caught, and NASA's going to get it. And that's a big, you know, black eye. And we have some really good guys. I scrap out a lot during the year. If it's a thousandth off, there's parts that are a thousandth off. That's a fifth of your hair. I'll scrap the whole lot just so that we don't even entertain the idea of sending a bad part, because we don't know what that's going to really work out. Is that holding an O-ring seal? And that could be the reason why a spaceship blows up. You know, my grandfather told me a story once, and I think it's stuck with me more than any one of the stories, and it's really quick. He was at Bass Houston, and they were stamping out the toilet handles, right? And somewhere down the line, QC caught that they were a couple thousandths out of dimension, and they had a truckload of these things. Well, someone wanting to squeeze the order, they're really busy, decided to send it through without even calling the customer. I'm scared of just calling the customer and telling them the parts out of print. Would you take it? For me, that's, you know, my pride won't let me do it. I'll just scrap them. There goes $5,000. But it's better than, you know, any potentials. So truck leaves, you know, everything's looking good. A couple weeks later, truck comes back and dumps down the toilet handles right back on their lot. And, you know, they were out of print. They were rejected. So it doesn't matter what you're making. You stick to the prints. You make it to print. You check it to print. You ship it to print. And that's it. That's your job. And, you know, if you stick by those standards, don't judge a part by its function, you know, because you're not the boss of that. The customer is. The rules are the boss of that. And that's why they're in place, because you take in, you know, you give an inch, you know, you take 12. And it's really important adherence, because you're not going to be in business long if you are sending out bad products. In manufacturing, we do not make enough. We make 15, 25, 45%, somewhere in there, depending on who you are. You scrap one job, there goes your month, you know, depending on the size of it. So yeah, quality standards are just as important as the design. You know, it's like the bow on the box.
Well, and I know that you have, you know, customers that are oftentimes accountable to real formalized kinds of standards like ISO or,
Oh yeah.
you know, and you've got to comply with that as well. So, you know, I imagine there's a lot of different situations like that you
There
have.
is. We have a lot of different of those custom. You know, there's the ISO, and you know, the thing with the ISO is it's there's a wide variety of different levels of checking the part. Sometimes you can get a part where you throw in a couple dimensions and you're done. Sometimes we had one at Christmas time, and I had to be sitting here doing dimension bubbles for a part that it didn't need it. But Christmas Day, you know, Christmas Eve, I didn't spend with my family. I was doing 1,000 different true tolerance bubbles on every dimension, on every part. And it was only 5 parts, but it took about 30 man hours. And I sent my guys home. I wasn't going to have them. And so if you're an engineer, or if, you know, if you're drawing up the prints, you know, don't over dimension something, because you will pay for it, not only in cash, but time. And so being able to have the prints that are dimensioned correctly and not over dimension is very critical too. And that's all on the design stage.
Well, and that brings up another interesting point, because you do so many different kinds of jobs. You really have to make sure the customer is really specific to you and their instructions, right? Making sure that if they're not specific, you have to
People ask the
make them get
questions.
specific, so you're delivering the right product to them.
You're darn correct. I mean, if there's no clarification, don't be embarrassed, because it's way more embarrassing to send back, you know, to have a truckload back and have it sent, you know, dropped on your lot. You know, there are no dumb questions in manufacturing, because it's safety, you know, quality, speed, and it's a fine balance. And those lines, you know, it's almost, they're not, one's not higher than the other. Almost they're even, and they have to be, because they are all very special. They're all very critical to the business. You know, if you aren't safe, workers' comp goes up. If you're too slow, you ain't going to make money on what you quoted. And, you know, there really is a fine balance, and there's almost no line.
So the next part of operations is process and capacity strategy. So
Woo.
this is determine how a good or service is produced. In other words, the process for production, and commits management to a specific technology, quality, human resources, capital investments that determine much of the firm's basic cost structure. So I know over the years you've done a lot of work in process improvement and capacity. So I know there's lots to that you can go over there for sure.
This is, this is one of the this is one of the toughest struggles, because not only that, in there you got mixed in, you got HR and you got, that stuff. And so this is where, for me, integrations have been really starting to help out. In manufacturing, one job can have 15 different services, and materials. You're dealing with 15 different people. And so it becomes a soap opera of sorts of this part's life and history. If it's something that you've done before and you've seen it before, well, you know how it goes, you know what to expect. But we do a lot of custom or new jobs that are only going to last once, because it's going to get blown up by the military, or it's a prototype, or who knows. And so, I'm going to go back to it again and design. If your estimator is going to not just shoot from the hip, but if he's going to use a good software, I use Paperless Parts. And Paperless Parts is a very new software. It's maybe about a year old, and it uses Python, which is a higher learning code, and it actually picks apart the model and gives me some crucial details on it, radiuses, how close the radiuses are to the cut lines. And so we want to capture all the data in the front, in the beginning, because it will translate to the shop better. The last thing you want to do is have the shop come out into the office and ask you a bunch of questions about the job. We do want that, but only because there's something, maybe a little part we left out, or maybe he has an idea to make it better. Maybe he can, because of what you put down in your estimation or in your design, it can be built. The guys who work out back there, they're smart. They're very smart. In fact, some of the smartest individuals I know are back in a shop, machining, designing on CAD. These guys really have a three-dimensional brain and can see things very clearly. And so with the right recipe going out to the shop, they can do what they do best, is which turn the knobs and make the machines do things that they don't want to. And having a schedule, so something that has been missing a lot in this business is a schedule board. We've had people come through, and we want to use magnetic boards, and which are great, because if it works for you, it works. If it works, don't change it. But somehow to convey what people are supposed to do in a day, because there's a little thing called work expands to fill the day. So if you have one part to make, it'll take all day. If you have 5,000 to make, they'll take all day. And so being able to schedule these things according to your quote, cut down a little bit of the time. So if you quoted 10 hours, people have 9 hours to make it, because the dummy factor and or Murphy will come knocking. And Murphy, that guy, you never know where he's going to come out. It could be, oh my gosh, my nitrogen tank is out for my laser. They needed those parts to bend. Now I have 2 cells that are out of work today. What am I going to do? Guess what? They're probably sweeping if you don't have a plan behind that. And that's some expensive handle pushing. When you got a $35 an hour welder pushing a broom, man, that'll make you grit your teeth real quick. So, scheduling, we use Trello. I have the business plan, but there's a free plan, and Trello is amazing. It integrates with everything else. And, Trello, I not only do we have it for the work, I have it for my personal life. I have 72 Trello boards. I'm a Trello maniac, and my kids have Trello, and it's connections and integrations are starting now to really take hold into the manufacturing sector, and we're going to see it take a big chunk out of a lot of confusion, because for the people who make the most advanced equipments in the world, we don't have a lot of advanced. There's still people back there on an anvil sometimes banging stuff into place. And so as we kind of speed up here a little bit and get integrated, it's very important to have communication across the board. The workspace for G Suite. Zoho. These systems are critical because my grandfather told me one day, I don't hear it, I see it. So it needs to be somewhere on paper, plus accountability. If someone wrote it down on Trello and you see it, you can't unsee it. It's there. You logged in. You have a paper trail. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that
Well,
was
and
enough.
well, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because one of the things we discussed last week in our class was the whole idea of the role of MRP and ERP. And as a smaller business, sometimes you have to piece these things together, right?
You
You
do.
can't
Yeah.
can't afford Oracle.
Oh, yeah. I don't got $1 million to spend on software, but and a lot of those they're too, some of them are too heavy hitting too. Even for the other places. What I found with all these larger companies, they do one thing really amazing, and then they do all the other things kind of and they could put it all together. But with integrations, you have one company that's doing one thing amazing, and this other company, and you put them all together, you get a recipe that is adaptable to you and your business, that is modifiable at any moment. It's very cost effective. And the bad part is when you get too many, trying to keep track of them, or you kind of phase one out, you forget, and you're getting a subscription this is what I'm dealing with right now, because we are so integrated that I have stuff I'm finding I had for a year. There goes $1,000. But our quotes went from a day to 5 minutes. So I'm learning the hard way to keep track of all of those, and I'm not good with that stuff, so I'm having someone do it for me.
And the other thing I wanted to mention that kind of falls under process and capacity, I know, there are a lot of different methods out there, but I know you do use Lean Six Sigma in your shop.
Oh yeah. Having a clean shop that has components that are traceable. The last thing you want to do is go looking for a wrench for 20 minutes because someone didn't put it back. Where does that 20 minutes come out of? I don't quote 20 minutes on top of every job to look for a wrench, because if it's not the wrench, it's the hammer. And if it's not the hammer, it's the nails. If it's not the nails, it's the gloves. So that can go on forever. And I've seen everything lost. Well, not yet. The world is there's Murphy again, because he's everywhere in this business. And with everything that can happen in manufacturing, it's very important to keep Murphy far, far away, so that when he does come around that blind corner, you can see him and adapt and move. Because when he comes and it's 2 feet away, you're gone. Something, you never know what's going to be a $30,000 hit to the business because someone didn't drag and drop the correct file over. Simple as that. All it took was one second movement. That's happened to me. For the first time in our company's history, we only had $2,500 of our biggest hit in 49 years. Last year during COVID, right in the beginning of it, things were hectic. People were, we're an essential where people are flipping out. We still have to work. And we had our largest reject in company history was $30,000. A small company like this, that was a hit, And then COVID, almost all the work's gone. We're making stuff for free. We made 2,000 face shields. It was a very bad year last year. I probably shouldn't be in business. We, lost a lot of money. But the guys are my heroes are. They made it back a little bit to keep us alive, and what made us stronger. And the integrations did that as well. And so the integrations kind of breathe some life into us.
What I kind of like, if I had to pick best practices here, it sounds like, you mentioned Murphy, but to me that's kind of code word for have a contingency plan, have a
Proactive.
Understand, what could happen.
Yep.
And be prepared for that. I also like the fact that you've used a lot of different technologies, so instead of not having any kind of an ordering system, you've been able to pair things together, which I think is really cool. Then the fourth area of operations management is location strategy. So that requires integrating capacity needs, personnel levels, technology, inventory requirements, determine the flow of materials, people, information. So, I know a lot of businesses don't move around and choose locations a lot, but if you can kind of talk about some of the benefits and challenges about your location, or if you were to put up another location, what would you look for?
Um, it's interesting. In the beginning of my grandfather's career, using Goleta or Buellton, and there's not a lot going out in Buellton. In those days, there's no internet. So, when I came into this business, I already did a lot of this stuff, but I was part of getting sales. And so pounding the pavement for me was driving and going to knock on doors. And that was the way that, or it was either old Thomas Nett, where you had that book, the book was this thick, and it's like McMaster Carr had that book too. And, that, or, someone talking about you. So getting new business was rather difficult. So thus we moved closer and closer and closer to LA, saved money on shipping. Now, if you're going to be in Buellton still, it's going to be more expensive to ship a plate out there than it is here in Ventura. We get McMaster Carr same day. You guys don't know how important that is. That is like if I need a screw that is not here in town, if I call McMaster Carr before 10 o'clock, it's going to come before 5. And this has saved us so many times. It could be a screw, it could be a grinder, it could be a Brillo pad. It doesn't matter. They have almost everything you need for manufacturing and agriculture and power and everything. And so location is, important to your business, whatever that business is. We need metal. We need, quality employees. We're not going to get those by being in some kind of, small town that doesn't have a lot of supplies. Our operations are going to slow down because shipping is going to be twice as much, twice as expensive. Location is a big part of it, being next to a freeway. And if we were to move, I really couldn't. I'd maybe move to Texas or something like that. But I also heard recently that might not be the best decision. But I like where I'm at, and we are, I think, very lucky. I've traveled and I've seen. When I travel, I'll take the kids, and let's say one of the days I'll call a manufacturing company, say, "Hey, can I get a tour?" And they just think I'm crazy because I'm on vacation. I want a tour of their shop, and it'll be a larger one. And the last one I went to was a company. It's a muffler exhaust company in Austria, and you got to know your business and love it. It makes me happy, and I love being here in Ventura because it's nice and the weather's perfect. So we're not having to worry about chains because of snow or it's raining all the time. And those are all the things that are going to be looked at per your business. I think it's kind of specialized for whoever you are, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and I think what jumps out at me is you mentioned things like, close to your customers, close to your suppliers, close to your supply chain, and close to your talent, because,
Yep.
that's the other consideration. You might say, well, I'm moving to here because the taxes are better, but you may not be able to access the right workers.
There's a reason why, and boots on the ground is important too. Boots on the ground, you need to check your vendors. You should always have 2 or 3 vendors of the same. So if you're going to be anodizing, you need 2 or 3 anodizers, because one of them is going to be quick and expensive. One of them is going to be, he's going to take forever, but it's cheap. One of them is going, you're going to have these different balances, and you're going to need to use those balances per your customer's demands. If they want quick and dirty, well, who you're going to go to right off the bat. You don't have to tell the guy who's expensive quick. He's not going to get to you in time. He's busy, and no matter how many times you ask him, that 5-day lead time that you asked for might be 7, but he told you it'd be 3, and it is what it is. And so knowing your customers and what they are capable of is crucial too as well. We have an anodizer who'll do it a day. The minimums are $150, and I love him. He's like a god to me. He is the triangle. He is the iron triangle at its finest. And that's a special talent.
Oh yeah, wow. So the next area is human resources and job design. So determining how to recruit, motivate, and retain personnel with the required talent and skills. People are an integral and expensive part of the total system. So I know this is a big one for you.
This is, it's not on my list of requirements under my job description anymore as of today, actually. It's funny. But you know, I'm a firm, my grandfather was an amazing guy, but he also was hardcore. There wasn't a day that I got told I was not smart enough or cussed at or something, you know. He had the old school way. The old school way, you know, you got yelled at a lot. And no, not every boss was like that, but growing up, I remember going to different places and people weren't respected much. And I didn't learn the best that I could under that. And I just told myself when I grew up, I was going to be a nice boss. Well, I was, and then I got taken advantage of. And so I had to find a happy medium. And respect, you could respect someone, you don't have to be their friend. You know, there's these little words that keep these definitions of our relationships separated. And the older I get, the more I find that they are there for a reason and they need to be utilized. Because if you're someone's friend too much, they'll take advantage of you. They'll get too many days off, and you know, they're slow on production. And so creating those lines of separation are crucial for your business. And you're not going to have you know, these top 10 that he has. I mean, if you don't have all of these, you're not going to be as successful as you can be. You have them all, you're going to make it well in life. You may not drive a Ferrari in the manufacturing sector, but this kind of translates to every business. So, you know, their business practices and, you know, the relationships, you don't want to work with someone you don't like all day. You are with these people longer than your family, and by tremendous amounts when you run the numbers. And so treating each other with respect and working as a team is always it's hard. People are people. And we had our first of the year, we had 2 months. I've never seen anything like it. We had the perfect teamwork. You know, we'd massaged out the players who were viruses, and man, it was just like symbiosis. And something happened, you know, 3 weeks ago. I really don't know what it was still. It's just attitudes change, and we got to work on it again. And team meetings in the morning are just amazing for morale, and it creates a, you know, communication. People are talking about the parts, and you know, HR is no one's going to make good parts if they feel like they are belittled or lesser than. And so I'm trying to drive a system here, which is unusual. You have me as the owner and have a business manager, but then I want everyone else to be I don't know if you're gonna like this one, Ray, but I want everyone to kind of be an equal, even if they're kind of new. They are a 5S specialist, you know, so they're going to be working on the cleanliness of the facility, but everyone kind of have like almost no hierarchy. It's a team, and they all can kind of be on each other to get things done. And we're going to try it out. It's a little bit of experiment, and it was working for the first 2, but it took one guy just to get a little bit, you know, get a little bit more of an attitude, and it kind of all fell apart. But it's hard to do that. And, you know, I have no real answer. I have bamboo HR. It's amazing. People can complain or, you know, lift others up in it. And we also have Bonusly. If you guys don't know what Bonusly is, it's an online, like Twitter, but you can, the employees can bonus each other. So it immediately raised our culture tremendously. So let's say someone had a nice smile for the day. You know, someone smiled at someone, you know, hopefully they're not giving each other bonus leads for that. It's just an example, but they send each other $5, $10, $20. Sometimes I see something that rocks and someone gets $100. And so being able to kind of bonus each other has created this system to where people want to do well to get it, but they also want to give it. And it's been amazing. Bonusly has really changed the game. It's something that is called gamification. And gamification is where you create, you know, you stimulate dopamines in the head, and you want to, you know, you want to chase the stick. And so it's the future of business, and you make happy workers out of it. I mean, you like doing your job. It's a little more competitive, but it's fun, and it's very exciting to see these, you know, advancements come through.
Well, in fact, one of the aspects, and as you know, in this class, we cover Lean Six Sigma, and we talk about the, you know, the different wastes, and one of the waste is wasted talent. and
Wow.
if you're not relying and have people that you can trust and you're listening to, then you're wasting that talent. And so I like the fact that you're really, trying to be focused on getting the most out of your talent and giving them a voice. And
Surround yourself with smarter people and let them know that. Guess what? As a business owner, they won't be asking you a bunch of questions during the day that they already know. And so you give them, you hired a fisherman, don't fish for him, and it's I love that. Surround yourself with smarter people. It's going to be a little more expensive, but scrapping a whole bunch of parts is more expensive. And if they know that they're the specialists in that, they're not going to second guess themselves. They're going to make the decisions that are going to be better than yours, and that's what we hired them for.
yeah, yeah. Well, and what's great about that too is you're also letting your and you kind of alluded to this, you're letting your team members be leaders, right? If they
Hmm.
know that you hired them because they excel at this, then it's also kind of encouraging them to be a mentor to other people.
I didn't hire them so I could micromanage them. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and we have a really good team here. I probably say this every year, but it's the best team I've ever had. But we keep you know changing our facilities and tweaking. We're never done twisting the screws and trying to create a better environment. Not only just for safety, for quality, and for a better living situation for our people.
that's great. And so the next part is supply chain management. And our definition is decides how to integrate the supply chain into the firm's strategy, including decisions that determine what is to be purchased from whom and under what conditions. And I know, a couple examples ago, you kind of alluded to, having repetitive vendors, having more than one vendor,
Yep.
and they
Three.
may do different things, but what other kind of supply chain issues do you get into?
Well, knowing your vendor is the most critical part, because if you're going to be sending a part out for plating and you're going to send it to a different vendor, it takes 1, 2, 3 different jobs to really get in a flow with a single company. So you're going to work with this company. You both don't know each other's systems. You don't know QuickBooks, or are they digital? Are they paper? Are you going to get your check, or are they going to deposit it? So these things are crucial, because if you're a COD and you have a rush job and you bring a check and they don't accept checks, well, there goes a day. Just like that, a day's gone in a rush job because you didn't know them. So having, a business relationship, I think last time I spoke a lot of this too, is you're never going to get a job quick and cheap if you do not have a good business relationship. You always want to treat your vendors not below them, but a high. And you just give them the best you can, give them the most information you can. Don't drop hot jobs on them all the time. If you give them nothing but hot jobs and expect cheap prices, that's never going to happen. Give people some time. Things take time. You don't laser cut machine, do all this stuff. None of the equipment is truly automated. It takes a smart individual to run it. They move in an automatic fashion, but it still took the human touch, which is something we'll never get. We'll always have the human touch in one way or another. And the more we automate, the more we need data labeling. The more we need data labeling, the jobs are going to move around. They were scared in the Industrial Revolution that the machines are going to take over all our jobs. No, they actually created more jobs, and revolutionized processes and created a better world through automation. This next phase, which is integrations, is coming through, and I forgot what I was talking about, Ray. You know how I do.
Well, what's the whole idea of the supply chain? So you have these, and what I'm thinking about is, so you've already said that, vendor selection is important, getting to know your vendor as a best practice. But then I know you do all kinds of manufacturing, large sculptures, small parts. How about the supply chain going out? What does that look like? Getting deliveries back out to your customer
You
Yeah.
know, we're lucky. We have a pretty good delivery system, and a lot of we have trucking companies that we've used for 20 years. Some, DOS, I could probably name a couple of them, even though I haven't done it myself in a while, just because we've used it so long and I've heard their names. And then, you got a relationship with those companies. When you're dealing with FedEx or UPS, you will probably have a relationship with your driver, and there's a lot of drivers that come through. They're all amazing people, but they're corporate. So you're not going to have that, there's no extra love there. So if you need something a little quicker, having a local trucking company that can help you out is always amazing. And relationships in business, they're very clutch because people are willing to help out others that they love. People that are giving attitude or placing blames, throwing under the bus, people you see right through it. And so do the people who you're probably making the excuse to. And so, stuff happens. It's going to happen to all of us all the time. You got to be proactive, but the relationships are very important. And it doesn't matter if it's your plater, it doesn't matter if it's your janitor, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who it is. We're all here to do the same thing and to make parts. And we don't have a clean shop. We don't have a good 5S standard, which means we're going to accidentally ship cold roll steel instead of A572. And that's going to get a reject and we're done, because maybe it went to SpaceX and that fatigue department broke off and the shuttle blew up that quickly. Your vendors, though, I mean, these are your teammates, these are your associates, these are the people. You don't have a truck, they do, and no one's lesser than. And so it's very critical to be on the same page with them, know their systems, and are they 30 days, are they net 60? SpaceX wants to pay us net 90. We get a better deal than that, but 90 for us is a humongous ordeal. That's pretty much 4 months of that cash flow gone. 4 months of cash flow disappears and it magically reappears one day. And it's really heavy on the small business like this, especially if it's a titanium part, whereas we talked to, the materials are going to be 60% of the job. You don't want to see cost of goods sold with those numbers on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that very much affects all your supply chain costs when you have, when you have customers like that, where you're going to be waiting on your cash flow, you've got to build that in. Delivery
Yeah,
dates are really important because if they take that long and so on.
exactly. Sometimes you pay a premium sometimes a customer will pay a premium. They don't know it because they're 30 days, but maybe they always pay 60 or 90. And it's always like pulling teeth, getting the money out of them. Through COVID, we had some very hard times. I was doing minimum. I mean, I don't even know how we got through it. It's almost all a blur, but I was averaging 20 hours a day. I mean, I did 3,648 hours last year. And if I didn't have my relationships with my vendors, I would be out of business because I called up McMaster-Carr, gave him a speech, or I gave him an email, and I was pouring my life out to them of what was going on. We're making these face shields for free for the doctors and the nurses, but I'm not having any other work. And it was very, very frustrating, and came close to my mental end. I felt like many times, but my vendors believed in me. They carried me on some of the jobs. Maybe I was 20 days late on 30 days, but because of our relationship, because of 40 years of business and paying them on time and respecting them and not calling up and nitpicking things, there's a little scratch on the material. Hey, it's material and it's going to be scratched. But because of them, my vendors, I am still here today. I'm almost getting choked up about it a little bit because, it meant a lot to me, my family, and my personnel.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the next area is inventory management, and it says considers inventory ordering and holding decisions, how to optimize them as customer satisfaction, supplier capability, production schedules are considered. So, I know in this class we've talked a lot about, holding inventory. That's really expensive, but at the same
Yeah.
time, you have to keep customers happy.
I think it's kind of a customer. Some customers are going to want all their parts fast. If you've been doing work for this customer for 10 years and they're habitually, ordering on these dates and you got the proof, we will do it on rare occasions. We get this job, we run it over half, maybe we run it over double, just so we don't have to set up next time. Don't put a lot of money. If that's a 60% of materials job, you're probably not going to want to do that, especially if something happens and they don't come back. And so overruns, I love overruns without a doubt. You always need to be 10% over, especially if it's in your paperwork, because that 10%, it's the closest thing you can get to free money. I mean, you're costing for this amount, but you're going to get an extra 10% out. You're already set up for all these things, but you're costing for the 1,000 and they'll accept 1,100. That is the closest thing to free money, because you're costing for it all. You're only costing for the materials. You get them extra because you nest it better, or maybe the guy's a little faster, and it's really nice to get those extra percentages, and that's what kind of keeps you alive sometimes. It's yeah. I was remembering a job today that we did 20%, and that fulfilled an order from before, so it actually turned into a whole nother order. So we stocked the whole order from 2 other previous runs, and it was like a $5,000 job. So we have $5,000 on the shipping, or not shipping, and inventory, but it's only because of overruns. They don't want to take those percentages, but we use all the materials rather than scrapping it. How do you manage that? Well, there's a bunch of softwares. We aren't really hardcore on the MRP. We don't have an MRP ERP. We made our own. So, we'll have notes on our paperless parts or our Trello, and that will import. We're actually making our own. I'm making my own app, which kind of brings all these softwares together. So it's kind of like it's a SQL, it's a SQL, and it brings it all kind of together where we can push and pull and sync. There are apps out there like Zapier, but we don't have control over those really. And so we have something that's almost done programming, to where via API it'll be getting and posting and bringing it all together. And that is our MRP ERP. Being able to plug and play these things together. QuickBooks did not used to have an API that connected out or in. I think within a couple of years they allowed it. Now it's like a flood, and their online portal, everything connects to it. This is the graduating class?
Yeah, many of our class members are graduating. In fact, a lot of them this semester.
They're going to go out, into this field, and if they're going to get into manufacturing, manufacturing's old school. I am a hip guy in it, because of my age, and probably only have a couple more years of saying that, Ray. But there's not a lot of people at my age. I'm 41. I've been doing this for 30. I've been making money at this for 30 years. Yeah, about 11 I was, counting parts and sweeping and stuff. And it's I forgot where I was going with it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm notorious for this. I'm a sidewinder.
No, that's fine. Well, and one of the things I liked at what you said is that you've put systems together to manage your inventory, and you're accounting for that safety stock. You're accounting for that overage in your pricing. Which is really important. So you've got to make so much, and maybe have so much over, and you've got to account for all that, and
your time, keeping track of the time. All this stuff is all these things are critical to the business, and this is one of the hardest things of it. They're all very, very hard, and all need to be maintained, because just one of them and the whole chain breaks loose. But cost accounting, you're not going to be in business long if you quoted an hour and it took them 2 hours. And it is one of the hardest things to do, because 15 minutes stack up during the week, or during the day. And having very accurate information in cost accounting, we are just now seeing systems to come out that help keep track of it. Up until a year ago, we have a green sheet that follows the job card, and they fill it out. I remember doing that for 15 years. And if I waited till the end of the day, how accurate was I on every job? I wasn't. But when I'm being pushed and pulled in many different locations, I can't keep track of every time I'm on the forklift or every time I had to help someone lift a piece of material. And that's again where AI is going to be coming in, and with safety as well, is with these vision systems. I've been working on one right now that it knows the difference between MIG and TIG welding. It knows the difference between a grinder and a screwdriver and a wrench. And it allows me to collect data. How long was the TIG welder welding? And these things are going to be coming out very quickly. I made an algorithm that, or a machine model that won't turn on the drill press if you have a ring, a tie, long hair, long sleeves, gloves on. You can have nitrils because nitrils will rip off, but I have seen way too many degloved fingers and hands before. If you don't know what degloved is, do not Google it. I'm telling you, don't Google it. It is gross. And you will get pictures popping up that you will never forget. But I've gone to the hospital and taken people to the hospital so many times. So now the drill press, it's this close. Mechanically, it's working. And now we're just going to try to get some patents going on. But, these systems, they're going to be coming very quick. And you guys are the people who are going to be helping to implement or create these things. So as you go through and you go to this manufacturing facility that's been open for 40 years, a lot of them have, you don't see a lot of new ones. You guys are going to be the generation that is going to be thinking how to apply, all of these different new systems, integrate them, and create a better process. The world is on your shoulders for America, so you guys got to do it. There's you guys have a lot of cool tools coming out for you, and I'm really jealous that I could have had some of these tools in my younger age and really let it go. But hey, I'm here for a reason, and I got my mechanics of old school to implement into it too. So, yeah.
Nice. So the next time is scheduling. So determines and implements intermediate and short-term schedules that effectively and efficiently utilize both personnel and facilities while meeting customer demand. So I know you talked a lot about using, Trello and some other tools for scheduling.
It's got to be done way in advance because nothing in manufacturing is going to be. I'm lucky that I got McMaster Cargo here. I could call and get something, but that's not like it for 99% of the world. Every day just stacks up. And as we go through manufacturing, we are seeing that lead times are being ever so pressed. We are a premier manufacturer for Xometry. Xometry sends us the stuff that no one else wants to do because the lead time's too short. It can't be made. Who knows what it is, but there's a lot of parts we've made for them that shouldn't see the grit of sandpaper. But it's all of these things are very, very important. And I mean, they are the fundamentals of the business. It's crucial to be able to understand the job, when it's going to be done. Is it to print? Communication will be your biggest advocate. Talking to the meetings in the morning. Meetings in the morning, that's how you're going to get level-headed and build morale. Whenever we have a problem in the shop, whether it's HR or issues with scheduling, I say, did you guys have a meeting in the morning? Oh, no. Like, all right, bye. Because I already told you, if you don't have a meeting, I don't want to talk to you guys then. I'm not going to fix the issues that when we have the meetings, there are no issues. But then we, forget, or maybe things are going too well and we just, not have those meetings. You have meetings every day, you will be successful. I mean, not 100% guarantee as long as you got 8 other of those things that Ray's talking about, but communication is going to be the most critical thing. And Trello is a form of communication. QuickBooks is a form of communication. Like my grandfather said, I hear nothing, I read it, I see it. And that is really going to be the backbone to everything is, cross your T's and dot your I's and have legible handwriting.
Well, and I like the fact that you talk about communications in terms of it's not just talking, it's having a process, it's having a purpose to your communication. And I also like the fact that you said, hey, your financials are communications, your costing is communications, all of that our forms and communications, and we often forget about that.
They need to know how fast they should be making this part. But if you already have it in a scheduled block that's on a big screen TV, hey, this is your set time to do this. You know, that's amazing. And that's something I'm working towards, is projecting it on a wall and using these systems of AI and Trello. Automation is, if we can turn this into, instead of pushing them to get parts out, we can give them opportunities to make more money through bonusly, because they beat the production record. Boom, there's an extra $20 for you that day, or maybe it's $100. And it's a very, very, cost-effective way. There's one thing to go out and start whipping people or calling them names, or there's nothing to synthesize. And, gamification, all of these things are very efficient and cost-effective ways to get more out of people, because you don't get more out of people by calling them names. In fact, you will get less, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
And one thing I love too is I have Lucidchart. So Lucidchart is a very amazing wireframing tool that you can use for everything we're talking about. Can typically integrate with them, and so it's a flow chart online portal that allows you to just get your ideas out on paper, but it's in the cloud. You can share with people, and I flow chart everything. And it really, when you're seeing your ideas on paper, because you might forget one, and then you go back and you start, building it, it's really amazing what can come out of capturing these ideas, seeing them and flowing them. It was probably one of the biggest flow chart, or Lucidchart was probably one of the biggest game changers for me in my mental clarity. When you have a bazillion things going on and you're trying to make, $100,000 decisions, you're not going to last long if you're making the wrong $100,000 decision.
Wow.
Capturing your own thoughts, communicating with yourself is important.
Yeah. So the last aspect is maintenance. So requires decisions that consider facility capacity, production demands, and the personnel necessary to maintain reliable and stable processes. And I know in your shop, you've got all kinds of different equipment, and there's got to be a lot of different considerations in terms of how that's maintained.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, you could quote the job effectively. You can have a great team. I'm a big fan, I have some of the best equipment you can buy, but they're paperweights if you don't have the right personnel, and the right software. It's really a fine mix. But when it comes down to maintenance, that is something that probably gets the biggest hit. Something that is, there's always more that can be done. You can't have every part for your machine on the inventory, because then just have another machine. But what happens when you fill those machines and you need the production of them both? You can't have every part for both those machines, because then why just buy more machines? It's a never-ending vicious circle. And the one way to kind of thwart it is by greasing your machines, having a weekly, monthly, yearly protocols. We kind of have those. We have really experienced operators who know their machines, like driving a car or clutch, and you can feel the car. But that is not any excuse not to properly maintain your machine, because it will last longer. No machine, no work. I need to make 10 grand a day. If I don't make 10 grand a day, I have to have a talk with Gonzalo, and I don't want to, disappoint him. Gonzalo is a mentor of mine, and I speak with several mentors, some on a weekly basis, some on a biannual. And these are gentlemen who have been through the processes that I've many times, and they have a talent or experience, and that experience is vital to my success, because it's like having a crystal ball. And yeah, it's listen to the people around you who have been there, because they may not have all of the little facts and details correct, but there will be some golden nuggets that will change your business or your career.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Shane, for sharing all this information, helping us go through and understand how the 10 areas of operations management applies to your company. So I want to thank you for that.